Why do our schools need to transform today? This question is no longer theoretical, nor does it belong solely to the domains of educational policy and academic debate. It has become one of the key developmental issues for any society that wants to remain competitive, socially stable, and culturally relevant in the 21st century. The world is changing rapidly, and education must keep pace with these changes. The speed of technological, economic, and social transformations today is such that educational systems can no longer afford to be slow, inert, or rely on working models that were designed for completely different historical circumstances. Technological development and globalization are reshaping every aspect of our lives and economies. The way we communicate, work, make decisions, produce knowledge, and participate in public life is changing under the influence of digital technologies, artificial intelligence, automation, and global flows of information, capital, and labor. Schools can no longer be just institutions that transmit stable knowledge from teachers to students. In a time when information is no longer rare or difficult to access, the function of schools must go beyond simply transmitting content and focus on developing thinking, judgment, understanding, and enabling students to use knowledge meaningfully. The true value of education today lies in the ability to understand, analyze, and apply information in any situation. In other words, it is not only important what a student can reproduce, but also how well they can connect, interpret, evaluate, and apply what they know in new, changing, and uncertain circumstances. The OECD Learning Compass 2030 emphasizes the development of transformative competencies in every student. This framework clearly indicates that modern education must equip young people not only to adapt to the world, but also to responsibly shape it through creativity, collaboration, problem-solving, and ethical action. UNESCO highlights sustainable development, the ethical use of technology, and digital citizenship as the foundation of a fairer future. This means that education must simultaneously develop the intellectual, social, and moral capacities of students so that they can use technology responsibly, understand global challenges, and participate in building a more sustainable and humane society. The first 4 grades are crucial. It is precisely during this developmental period that the foundations for students' future success are laid, as key patterns of thinking, attention, motivation, language, and attitudes toward learning are formed at this time. This is where the basic cognitive abilities of our children are developed. If during this period understanding, reasoning, work discipline, and curiosity are systematically developed, later educational progress becomes significantly more stable and profound. Students must acquire basic skills, reading comprehension, mathematical thinking, and self-regulation in learning. Without these fundamental competencies, there can be no later success in the natural sciences, social sciences, arts, or technical fields, because they are precisely the foundation for all further acquisition of knowledge and the development of intellectual autonomy. We are moving from mechanical memorization to a deep functional understanding of how the world works. This means that students should not only memorize concepts, formulas, and definitions, but also understand their relationships, principles, causes, consequences, and possibilities for application in real life. But how can this be achieved? The key question of reform is not only what we want to change, but by which pedagogical approach we can achieve sustainable, high quality, and measurable change in the classroom. Everything begins with the principle: pedagogy must take precedence over technology. Technology by itself does not guarantee the quality of education. It becomes a developmental resource only when it is thoughtfully integrated into teaching, in accordance with clear educational goals, teaching methodology, and the developmental needs of students. A dynamic lesson structure involves alternating between the teacher's explanations, active student work, and reflection. Such an organization of teaching allows students to simultaneously receive expert support, space for independent thinking, and the opportunity to become aware of how they learn, where they make mistakes, and how they can improve. One of the most powerful tools is heuristic teaching based on the principle of guided discovery. In this approach, the teacher does not dominate with ready-made solutions, but instead carefully designs situations in which the student, through mental effort and with support and guidance, arrives at understanding. Instead of giving ready-made answers, the teacher uses carefully crafted questions to guide students toward insight. Such questions are not mere checks of knowledge, but instruments of thinking. They encourage comparison, reasoning, argumentation, re-examination, and the construction of one's own understanding. This approach develops critical thinking, intellectual independence, and confidence in problem solving. A student who learns heuristically not only becomes more successful in school, but also develops abilities that are crucial for lifelong learning, professional adaptability, and responsible civic engagement. To support this, new types of materials are needed. Heuristic textbooks that offer challenges, not just definitions. Modern educational materials must be designed to activate thinking, present problem situations, offer multiple perspectives, and encourage students to explore rather than passively copy and memorize. In higher grades, students transition to abstract thinking and more complex logical reasoning. This is a developmental stage in which teaching must become more intellectually demanding, conceptually clearer, and methodologically more diverse, so that students can build a deeper and more structured understanding of complex phenomena. Project-based learning becomes a key tool that enables the exploration of real-world problems. Through projects, students learn to connect knowledge from multiple fields, plan their work, collect data, collaborate, present results, and take responsibility for their own learning process. For example, climate change connects geography, biology, and mathematics, teaching students to analyze data in a comprehensive way. Through such topics, students simultaneously develop subject-specific knowledge, the ability for interdisciplinary thinking, and an understanding that real-world problems almost never belong to just one school discipline. Secondary education must prepare students for a knowledge-based society and a dynamic labor market. This means that schools must develop not only an academic foundation, but also the ability to adapt, innovate, work in teams, possess digital literacy, and solve problems in complex professional contexts. We are introducing more research activities, laboratory work, and simulations of real-world challenges. Such forms of work allow students to experience knowledge as a means of understanding and action, rather than as a collection of abstract facts disconnected from practice. Flexible organization of classes, such as block scheduling, gives students the time and focus needed for deeper exploration. When a student has enough time to immerse themselves in a problem, to make mistakes, reflect, and try again, that is when higher quality, more stable, and more functional knowledge is created. The method of assessment is also changing. Teaching reform cannot be successful if we retain the outdated model of evaluation that measures only short-term memory and speed of reproduction. We are moving from high-stakes tests to continuous formative assessment. This means that assessment should become an integral part of the learning process, not just a final mechanism for selection, pressure, and administrative ranking of students. It means monitoring progress and providing feedback that helps students understand their own way of thinking. The essence of quality feedback is not just to tell the student whether something is right or wrong, but to help them understand how they arrived at their answer, where they made a mistake, and how they can improve. Digital technology and artificial intelligence are powerful allies because they provide access to resources and personalized tasks. Their greatest educational value does not lie in their attractiveness or speed, but in their ability to support differentiated instruction, adapt to the student's pace, and provide access to quality sources of knowledge. AI can analyze answers and suggest personalized learning paths, but the teacher remains the central figure in the learning process. No algorithm can replace the pedagogical judgment, ethical responsibility, emotional sensitivity, and professional assessment of a teacher, who alone can fully understand the student as a developing individual. The success of any reform depends on our teachers. No strategy, platform, curriculum, or document will bring about real change unless the teacher is empowered to understand the reform, accept it as a professionally meaningful process, and competently implement it in the classroom. They need continuous systemic support and training. This includes quality initial education, ongoing professional development, mentoring support, professional learning communities, and institutional conditions that enable reflective and innovative practice. Successful countries like Finland and Singapore show that investing in teacher quality has the greatest impact. Comparative educational practice clearly confirms that sustainable system quality does not primarily stem from technology or bureaucratic control, but rather from a high level of professionalism, autonomy, and the social status of the teaching profession. This transformation is a journey. It is not a one-time administrative decision, nor a project limited to a few school years, but a long-term process of changing the culture of learning, teaching, assessment, and educational management. By 2030, we are laying the foundations. By 2035, full integration will be achieved. Such a timeline indicates the need for a phased, realistic, and strategically guided development in which changes are introduced in a planned manner, systematically evaluated, and refined based on evidence from practice. We must preserve the fundamental academic disciplines while simultaneously developing the modern competencies that are essential. Reform is not about abandoning knowledge, but about conceptualizing it at a higher level. Classical disciplines remain the foundation of intellectual culture, but are complemented by competencies that enable their modern application.
The message is clear. Education must shift from the reproduction of knowledge to the development of thinking. In other words, the school of the future does not measure its success by how much content it has delivered, but by how much it has developed the understanding, independence, and intellectual strength of its students.
We do not need students who only memorize. Society does not need passive executors of information, but people who know how to think, evaluate, argue, and act responsibly in complex circumstances. We need young people who know how to ask the right questions. The ability to ask quality questions is one of the highest marks of mature thinking because it precedes research, innovation, scientific work, and any serious problem solving. Our reforms are based on a long-term vision and a systematic approach to all levels of education. This means that changes must not be partial, fragmented, or short-term, but rather interconnected through curriculum, methodology, assessment, professional development of teachers, and institutional management. Only then can our education system become a stable foundation for a successful knowledge-based society. Education is not just a public service. It is the developmental infrastructure of society, without which there can be no innovation, no social cohesion, no democratic culture, and no sustainable economic growth. Together, we are building a school that understands the future. This is a school that does not react belatedly to changes, but anticipates them, reflects on them, and prepares students to participate in them actively and responsibly. Let's begin that journey today. The biggest mistake would be to wait for a more favorable moment, because the educational future does not happen on its own. It is built through the decisions we make now. To summarize, we are moving towards competency-based learning with a focus on critical thinking and the application of knowledge. The essence of this change is that students will no longer be evaluated solely on what they can repeat, but on how they use knowledge for understanding, reasoning, and action. We are adopting heuristic pedagogy, where guided discovery replaces passive memorization. In this way, teaching becomes intellectually active, developmentally stimulating, and oriented towards shaping independent, curious, and responsible students. And we are transforming assessment to provide continuous feedback for the development of every student. Assessment must no longer be just a final judgment, but a professional tool for guiding progress, strengthening motivation, and building students' awareness of their own learning. Visit our CRE website and find out more about how you can be part of this educational evolution. Educational transformation is not a task only for institutions. It requires the involvement of teachers, parents, researchers, policymakers, and all those who understand that the future of society is inextricably linked to the quality of schools. We put pedagogy before technology for a brighter educational future. This message encapsulates the essence of our vision. Technology only makes sense when it serves the development of thinking, humanistic values, and a higher quality educational experience for every student. Serbia 2035, a vision of excellence in every classroom. This is not just a slogan, but a strategic ambition for the quality of education to no longer be a privilege of certain schools, environments, or students, but a standard accessible to all. In collaboration with the Cray Center, a leader in the development of digital competencies, such cooperation provides the reform with a professional foundation, interdisciplinary breadth, and the developmental energy needed to turn pedagogical innovations into systemic solutions. Welcome to the classroom of Serbia's future. This is a space where knowledge is not transmitted mechanically, but is built through understanding, dialogue, exploration, technology, and meaningful pedagogical guidance. The journey has only just begun. That is precisely why now is the moment to set high standards, clear goals, and sustainable support mechanisms so that this transformation can have a long-term and measurable effect. We are building a smarter world, one lesson at a time. Every well-designed teaching situation, every stimulus for thinking, and every piece of feedback that guides a student forward represents a concrete step toward a knowledge-based society. Thank you for your attention, but even more than attention, what we need is shared understanding, professional dedication, and a willingness to truly change education in a way that fits the times we live in.